Free speech for me, but not for thee. This is essentially the message that the mobs of Antifa drone on in an almost cult-like manner whenever they hit the streets to fight National Socialists. I mean, Nazis. Whose streets? Our streets. Whose streets? Our streets. Whose streets? They will not allow those with opinions that differ from them to speak, nor do they see the irony of their ongoing mob riots in Berkeley to restrict the speech of other people. Because non-discrimination, except with people that disagree with them, is Antifa's fundamental and guiding moral principle, they feel that being as non-judgmental and undiscerning as possible makes them more moral. But as you might have noticed, this leads to all kinds of funny contradictions. For example, simultaneously being pro-gay rights, as well as being for the mass immigration of people into the West with a learned cultural hatred for homosexuals. They vocally support both groups, even though the two obviously cannot coexist. This is even beginning to be seen by the LGBT community in places like France, who, because of the growing threats in that country and the very real danger that it presents, are actually throwing their support behind right candidates like Marine Le Pen and the National Front. It's a fool's errand trying to engage with someone who doesn't care one bit about logical consistency to reconcile their cognitive dissonance. They've already accepted what they think they stand for, and they won't change, contradiction or not. They'll just say somehow it's different and go on attacking people that would only like to, for example, have a public dialogue on issues like mass uncontrolled immigration. And let's be clear, there are of course good arguments for controlled and limited immigration. Migration in both directions is a natural part of an open economy, and there are many immigrants who are valuable for the destination country's economy. But mass immigration is an entirely different matter. But a rational conversation cannot be had with these people. There is no middle ground. They are textbook examples of extremists in every sense of the word. They love the self-congratulatory dopamine hit they get while virtue signaling their oh so pious altruism. They really do believe they're being moral by, as they call it, bashing the fascists or bash a fash, or in reality, suppressing others' rights of opinion and speech. They couldn't care less about the end results or where these kinds of decisions take a country or its society. And in a way, they're like spoiled children. They cannot reflect on their ideologies, nor are they farsighted enough to ponder outcomes. Context, circumstance, logic, reason, nuance, none of these things matter. But this is what a fanatic is. And let's be clear, they are fanatics. For an Antifa supporter, their perceived higher morality is an article of faith, and this is all basically religious in nature. Antifa isn't marching against any external threat. Their riots are one large virtue-signaling demonstration that they believe will cleanse themselves via action of their own internal and unacceptable and wicked psychological demons that they've convinced themselves they have through over-socialization. Things like racism, ageism, sexism, Islamophobia, and given their tactics, unironically, fascism. All people hate. All people are to some degree fascist. All people are to some degree racist. It's in the nature of human beings to be so. But if you internalize the idea that those things are sinful and not moral, you get the outcomes that we are seeing played out in towns like Berkeley. Antifa is made up of people with sheep-like instincts. Lots of people feel comfortable as part of a herd. The Antifa mobs that form for socially approved targets of hatred, like Nazis, are the best example of this. But in reality, we all know that Nazis haven't existed since the end of the Second World War. But as they've given themselves the self-proclaimed title of anti-fascists, they of course are going to label anyone that disagrees with them as Nazis. But we'll never call them National Socialists, conveniently. Antifa is not capable of introspective thought. They just regurgitate prefabricated buzzwords like tolerance, except for those with different opinions, homophobia and Islamophobia, without even really comprehending what they mean. And God forbid you ever try and open a dialogue with one of these people, as it just unleashes an absolute deluge of ad hominem, strawmen, and every type of fallacy under the sun. Antifa is the end result of 50 years of the long march through the institutions. They are the kinds of minds that have been molded via the current establishment narrative. But people don't make decisions in a vacuum, divorced from the society and culture around them. But as culture is now generated through the mass media and educational system, consent can now be manufactured. This is the way people are controlled. People are social animals. We don't like to be shunned, and we don't want to run counter to the dominant narrative and thus have ourselves excluded. We seek inclusion. We seek to be part of a group, a tribe. We are tribal creatures. Now that the establishment has dictated what are the moral and correct ways of thinking, these ideas are spread and shared via every system within that establishment: government, media, academia. Once everyone is made to understand that all others are in agreement of what everyone should think and believe, you are kept in check via an almost all-encompassing system imaginable. It uses every single person you come into contact with, including those you don't, like the media figures and opinion leaders, to keep you in place via a huge system of reward and punishment and a huge amount of social validation or social scorn. The establishment has everyone with wrong think afraid of not only being excluded from society, but it's now coming to punish those that refuse to conform economically, and now with groups like Antifa through violence and intimidation. That is the irony of Antifa. They're unintentionally, via delusionary and all-encompassing contradictory ideology, supporting the ones that they claim to be the enemies of. The banks, the corporations, and the media they run, which disseminates all the cultural norms that the Antifa parrots. It's hilarious. All of this is done so they can push their globalist goals under the pretense of morality and social justice and have willing idiots like Antifa supporting the divide and conquer strategy that has worked for centuries. Antifa is the brown shirts of the establishment. Cultural Marxists, postmodernists, anarchists, these groups are all populated with people that have no idea what they're supporting. Imagine impressionable, anxious, and people needy of social validation. Give them 4 years to marinate in the ideologically toxic environment you'll find at your average university, and you'll understand who populates the ranks of Antifa. Given all the cognitive dissonance that's needed to stay on script, you then realize that the ideological pureness, despite contradiction, is more important than reality to Antifa. Extreme leftism is genuinely either a real mental disorder or an ideology picked up by those prone to mental illness. But one thing you'll never have to do, you'll never have to accuse an Antifa supporter and their like of having a well thought out worldview. Thanks for watching. If you like this kind of material, please consider supporting this channel via Patreon or a one-off donation via PayPal, as it's becoming increasingly difficult to keep this project going during the current demonetization crisis on the platform. If you're not in a position to support this project, please like, comment, and share these videos. And like always, find me on the usual social media and check out the website blackpigeonspeaks.com for more interesting information like this.